Japan is a fascinating country, known for its rich traditions and modern advancements. However, one question often comes up. Why do some Japanese people seem distant or reluctant to engage with foreigners? It's not about hostility, but rather about cultural norms and expectations. In this video, we'll explore the reasons behind this, looking at how deep-rooted values shape the way Japanese people interact with foreigners. Discipline is a core value in Japan, especially when it comes to punctuality. In Japan, being on time isn't just polite, it's a sign of respect. Being even 5 minutes late can be considered rude or inconsiderate. For instance, if a foreigner arrives late to a meeting, they might unintentionally offend the Japanese host, who may take punctuality very seriously. In contrast, in some countries, lateness might be more easily overlooked. Cleanliness is another aspect where discipline plays a big role. In Japan, proper waste disposal is seen as an essential part of maintaining public order. People are expected to sort trash into separate bins for recycling, burnable, and non-burnable items. If a foreigner throws garbage on the street or doesn't properly separate waste, they could be viewed as disrespecting a deeply ingrained social value. This discipline extends beyond physical cleanliness to social behavior. In Japan, it's considered rude to talk loudly in public places, especially on public transport. The expectation is that people maintain a quiet and calm demeanor in public, and foreigners who might speak loudly on the train or bus could unintentionally disturb the social harmony. At the heart of Japanese society is the concept of wa, which means harmony. It emphasizes maintaining social balance and avoiding disruptions. Public behavior is supposed to reflect this, so small actions like eating while walking or speaking loudly are seen as inconsiderate. For example, in Japan, eating on the train or in public spaces is usually frowned upon, while in many other countries, it's more acceptable. In social situations, greetings are important. A bow is considered the most appropriate form of greeting in Japan. Foreigners who default to a handshake, for example, may unintentionally seem disrespectful, particularly in formal or traditional settings. Japan also places a high value on indirect communication. Instead of saying no outright, a Japanese person might use a softer approach, like maybe, or let me think about it. For a foreigner unfamiliar with this, the polite refusal could be misunderstood as uncertainty, rather than a respectful way of avoiding confrontation. In Japan, there's a strong cultural emphasis on avoiding conflict and causing offense. This fear of confrontation leads to the practice of not openly correcting others, especially foreigners, when they make a mistake. For example, using chopsticks improperly, like sticking them upright in a bowl of rice, can be seen as disrespectful, as it resembles a funeral ritual. Instead of pointing out the mistake, a Japanese person might choose to remain silent, not wanting to cause embarrassment to the foreigner. This reluctance to correct others stems from the value placed on maintaining harmony and avoiding any uncomfortable or confrontational situations. While this can make interactions smoother in the short term, it can also leave foreigners unaware of cultural mistakes, making it harder to fully integrate into Japanese society. Japan's long history of isolation, particularly during the Edo period, helped create a highly self-reliant society with limited exposure to other cultures. Even today, Japan's population is 98% ethnically Japanese, meaning many Japanese people grow up with little to no interaction with foreigners. This lack of exposure can sometimes lead to discomfort when interacting with people from different cultural backgrounds. For instance, someone from a multicultural society might find it easier to understand and relate to people from different backgrounds. But in Japan, there is a more homogeneous culture, which means that foreigners who don't share the same background may be viewed as outsiders, sometimes unintentionally. The portrayal of foreigners in Japanese media also influences perceptions. Often, foreigners are depicted as eccentric, awkward, or struggling with the basics of Japanese culture, like using chopsticks or mispronouncing Japanese words. While these portrayals are typically intended to be humorous, they reinforce the image of foreigners as outsiders and make it harder for foreigners to be viewed as an integral part of Japanese society. These stereotypes can also make it more difficult for foreigners to shed these assumptions, especially when they've lived in Japan for years. Despite their familiarity with Japanese customs, media portrayals still shape the way they are perceived by the wider public. Japan's homogeneous society plays a big role in how foreigners are perceived. With 98% of the population being ethnically Japanese, many Japanese people are less accustomed to interacting with individuals from other cultures. This lack of exposure can make foreigners feel isolated, as they don't share the same traditions, values, or even physical appearance. For example, in a typical Japanese workplace or community setting, most people share the same cultural background, which makes social interactions more seamless. However, for a foreigner, not knowing the unspoken rules or customs can create a sense of exclusion. A foreigner may find it difficult to fully integrate into social circles if they're not familiar with or don't observe certain cultural expectations, like the proper way to give or receive a gift. Despite these challenges, Japan is becoming more open to foreign influence, especially in recent years. Globalization, tourism, and international events like the Tokyo Olympics have increased exposure to people from around the world. Younger generations, in particular, are more open to diversity and more willing to engage with foreigners. For instance, more young Japanese people are learning English and are curious about different cultures. They're also more likely to travel abroad, which helps them better understand and appreciate the diversity that exists in the world. These shifts are slowly but steadily making Japan a more inclusive society, though it will still take time for the barriers between foreigners and locals to fully dissolve. The reluctance some Japanese people feel toward foreigners is deeply tied to cultural values like discipline, social etiquette, and the pursuit of harmony. These cultural norms can create challenges for foreigners who might not fully understand or adhere to them. However, by respecting these customs and understanding the reasons behind them, foreigners can improve their interactions and better integrate into Japanese society. As Japan continues to embrace the forces of globalization and diversity, we can expect more open and harmonious interactions between Japanese people and foreigners in the future. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on Japanese culture.